Hey, thanks for joining me on another episode of No Gears, No Glory. Today, we're working on the Project Mazda. We're going to work on a little bit of paint correction and show you how dramatically you can change the look of a neglected paint job and make it pop. With a little bit of over-the-counter product and time, you can dramatically change the look of a car. If you're not proud of the car and it's your general day-to-day A to B, that's fine, but we can make you feel a little bit better about it, and I'm going to show you how. Here are the couple products that we're using today. We're going to be using a orbital buffer, we're going to be using a compound, and a polish. Basically, the orbital buffer will make short work of the work we're doing, although you can do this by hand. There's nothing that says you can't. You just get a little bit more of the work done quicker and consistently with a rotary buffer. We'll be using Meguiar's Ultimate Compound and polish today. Compound is just another form of an abrasive that actually just smooths out the paint. Polish is just yet one more step in smoothing out the surface of the paint, clear coat, and bringing out the clarity and the color of the car. This process is super simple, and if you want to devote some time to it, you can take a car that maybe not looks so good, has some blemishes, is not perfect, and make it look a lot better. And I don't know about you, but when my car looks good, I feel better about it. Let's go ahead and get started on the process. We're going to be using this inexpensive orbital sander. You don't need expensive material to get the job done and be pretty satisfactory. Again, this is not a perfect paint job. We're not trying to look for perfection or showroom quality or even auction block quality. We're just trying to make the car better. We're going to start by putting a little bit of product on here. Best to rub it in a little bit. I recommend wearing gloves. Do as I say, not as I do. Put it a little bit on the paint. I want to start in smaller sections so that we don't put too much on and have to take too much on. You want a clean microfiber cloth to wipe this off and make sure that you're not recontaminating the surface. Alright, so here's where we are after pass 1 of the compound. Now again, let's see if we can get a little bit of light contrast off of both sides. Not necessarily a huge difference, but we're starting to see the swirl marks going away, micro scratches going away. If you put that bottle right there, you start to look at how the reflection is in paint. You start to see that there's much more luster, much more clarity in that reflection. And you're just starting to get a much deeper, richer look to the paint. And as you can see, that panel took me a couple of minutes at most. Alright, let's go for pass number 2. We're going to start with several dots. Again, just going to put Alright, after pass number 2, my reflection with the camera, side not done. The paint is richer, it's deeper, more glossy, just looks overall better. Let's see if we can't just get a good walk around. Notice the reflection of the trees and the clouds and the paint on the two different sides. I feel good about it. My expectations would be that it'd come out a little bit clearer, but again, that's just pass number 2. You could do another pass and maybe a pass after that. Next up, we're going to use the polish, and again, that's just going to bring out more of the luster. It's going to bring out more of the clarity of the paint in comparison from one side to the other. Now you want to make sure when you switch from one product to another that you change your pads. You don't want to use the same pad. So we're going to pull this one off. Take this one, check it for now, and put on the new one. Voila! You may want to be careful that when you shake the bottle and open it, it burps and squirts product everywhere, and then you look foolish on camera. Alright, then start the process all over again. Using, again, like 4 to 6 passes, okay, in a crosshatch pattern, up and down, side to side, which just covers all of it. Pay attention to body lines, trying to get in there. Don't get too much on these ridges because you don't want them to get hot and burn through the paint. That's not a good idea. Couple things to keep in mind. When you're doing your passes, you're going to count your passes. Overlapping's fine. Pay attention to the body pieces like this windshield wiper spray. You're going to do around this. That material is going to get caught up in the edges, so you want to make sure you wipe that away. You don't want to let it sit in the paint after long periods of time. Cords for the buffer that you might be using. And you don't need a buffer. You can do this by hand and still be very effective. But the cords, make sure it's wrapped over your shoulder and not dragging on the hood of the car. You don't want to create any new scratches or blemishes in your paint that you're working hard to correct. You want to make sure that you get all the material off. Temperature of the day is very important. I live in Arizona where most of the year has been very hot. This year in particular is the hottest year on record. So coming out here and doing this kind of work is definitely going to be something that you're probably going to have to do in the fall, like it is right now. It's October, or winter or early spring. You want to keep the temperature probably in the 80s or lower, and direct sunlight's not a great idea. If the polish or buff compound starts to dry more than you want, make sure you get it off. Spend a little bit of time gently rubbing in a circular motion, work it into the paint and back into the cloth, so that not only do you get a little bit extra benefit from the product that's left on the paint, buffing it in, making that spot look good, but you get it off so it doesn't start to damage the paint over time or leave some kind of long-term blemish in the paint. Look at that difference. Quite a bit more luster, depth of color. The clarity of the paint is fantastic compared to this side. This side's clean and it's okay. It'll do, but you can see there's swirl marks in the paint in the sunlight here. Okay, it's not great clarity, it's not deep color. Then you come over to this side and you can see a huge difference. With the difference of the shine and how the light reflects off in a much more direct lighting angle versus a more broad glare off the paint that way. And my reflection in the paint, it's 15 years old at this point. You can see there's chips in the paint, and that's okay. That's going to happen. And you can correct that if you want. You could actually repaint this hood in your driveway with the same OEM color paint. We may be working up to stuff like that in the future on this car, but for right now we're going to correct what we have and just make it look better all the way around. So you may be wondering, what are the limitations of a product like this? What kind of damage can it take out of my paint? What can I fix with it? How good will it work on certain conditions? You can see here we've got two different types of paint damage. We have scuff marks that are not into the paint. Looks like somebody may have drugged something across, or they bumped into another vehicle or something. Then down here you have gouges in the paint, you have gouges in the finish. This will take a filler material to get everything out of that, unfortunately. However, this we can probably fix. I'm not exactly sure how far this will go, but we're going to try it right now. All right, a little bit better. You can already see an improvement. However, it's not perfect. Now you can see we definitely buffed some of those lines out, and there's, I'm not sure if this is going to capture on camera or not, but there's definitely some still, texturally there's some damage there a little bit, visually there's some damage there, but we actually got a lot of the material off that was left behind. So that's, again, pass one, and we're going to wipe that down. Just like the front, we're going to wipe it down. Circular motion is some of the best ways to get that product off, and anything that might be lingering in, you're going to work it into the paint and just improve upon what you're already working on. And again, you hear people say, oh, that'll buff out. This is what they're talking about. A little bit of compound, a little bit of polish, and just taking a little bit of time. And there's definitely some blemishes here that still exist. However, the brighter color that was left behind is gone. So now we're just gonna work into the paint and try to bring out that color again. All right, let's go for round two. I just wanna note, remember, you are working on a body curve here. Body curves are difficult, especially when you're using rotary machineries. You can heat up the paint and then burn through the clear coat and or down into the paint and down past the paint. So be very careful. Have a very light touch and move briskly over those lines, and do not spend much time on the actual body curve if you do not have to. Okay, here we go. Two. And again, we started out with the question, what are the limitations of a product like we're using here today with this Meguiar's compound? These are the limitations. You get into body work like this, now the surrounding paint, I believe you'll agree, looks a lot better. And then this part of the car does not take the beating of the sun like, say, the hood or the roof. So it's easy to bring the paint correction back out with a process like this. You can actually feel, if you run your nail gently down it, you can actually feel that there are some gouges in the paint. And when there's gouges in the paint, compounding is probably not going to do it. So in the interest of being thorough and consistent, we're gonna go ahead and put our Meguiar's polish on the paint, and we're gonna see what that brings out. There you have it. Some of the limitations of a product like this, and more importantly, the results. Compounds, polishes, waxes, they're not gonna perfect a bad paint job, but they're gonna make it look a lot better. And you can do a little bit of this work. You don't have to do every body panel all in one day. Take a weekend, take a couple weekends to do the entire car, and you're just protecting the car little by little. if you want to sell this car, even if it's not a great vehicle, somebody that buys it next is more likely to buy it if it's an attractive vehicle. All right, there you have it. A little bit of paint correction, a little bit of paint polish, and a little bit of work goes a long way. It doesn't take much to take a plain car that's potentially been neglected and bring it back to life a little bit visually. And I know personally when my car looks good, I feel good about it. I feel better about my A to B vehicle. Even if you're not a big enthusiast, it's something you can do to make your car look a little bit better. And again, when it comes to resale value, a car that's been taken care of gets better resale value. Thanks for joining me again on my channel, No Gears, No Glory. Hope to see you back here soon. More content coming your way. Thanks a lot.